You good to go?
Oh, okay. I thought it was like question answer.
Oh, sorry. No, I'll do the intro. Okay. Welcome everybody to Yield Today with Dallin Candland. I'm here with Hiram Anderson. He is a good friend of mine. We are roommates at BYU, Idaho. He's a coding extraordinaire, done a lot of game dev, and he's actually leaving for a mission soon for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like I and many others from the church have done. He's going to Nashville, Tennessee, and excited to support him on his journey and excited to just have him on the podcast before he leaves. So thanks for coming on, Hiram.
Thank you, Dallin. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, no, it's super cool to see you. And I think where I want to start this is just where you've come as far as like when you got to BYU, Idaho to like now, or at least when I met you. So when I met you, you were working on the grounds crew, waking up stupid early. You're like, I'd wake up and you're like already gone. And so it's like sometimes hard to like pray with you before or whatever. And so you
Right.
just be gone. But like,
Well, I think it was 6 to 2 is what they wanted.
that's
Sometimes you
crazy.
get off more like 12 if you were lucky, but they wanted to, I guess, get like the lawn mowed before people got onto the grounds for the day. Which, the problem is they have the same logic as we want the sprinklers to run before everybody gets there. So if we're there mowing the lawn in the morning and the sprinklers turn on in the morning, that can get some wet people.
Yeah. So how do you see that job? Like when you look back at it, how do you see it?
um, well, I wasn't a very good student in the spring semester before that summer. I kind of, I don't think I knew I don't think I had like the work ethic to get through all the assignments and the classes very well. And then I take this job, and I believe there's a kind of a satisfaction you get with working with your hands, especially when you're like out. We were working at a park. There's like a baseball field there, but you're out there and you're like smelling the pine, and you're working with your hands, and it's like you just have a lot of time to think about where you are, where you're going, where you've been, how you can improve. It's kind of feels refreshing. And there's also like the kind of the physical efforts you put in, like exercise literally gives you the serotonin in your brain, and is pleasure. So
Mhm.
I think it kind of became a turning point for me, because that fall semester is my what became my best semester to date. As far as, yeah, and you were a big part of that too. I think we kind of leaned on each other a lot there.
Yeah. So it's interesting you bring that up because I worked at a potato farm for about a month, and on the 20s, maybe the 20th day of doing that, maybe not that many, but that was the day where I threw down my shovel and I said, "That's it. I'm starting my podcast tomorrow." And it was like I had so much time to think that it just became so abundantly clear like I had to do this, and I already had thought so much about it. So was there any connection with that, like with micromarch and other things that you wanted to develop that like connected with you doing all that manual labor?
um yeah, I think I have that personality type. I can kind of live rent free in my own brain as long as I want. I'm like that. It's like the absent-minded professor who's always pacing around in his study or whatever. I feel like if I have something to do with my hands, it lets me kind of come up with ideas, or whether that's for personal improvement, whether that's like a crazy idea for a game or something, or maybe it's like, oh, I remember a problem I had from like a week ago with actually a really simple solution, or whatever. So yeah, I think it really can help.
That's cool. So kind of dive into the development of micromarch, like your experience, how it's come along, what you've done on it, and just report on your experience. And you're actually the first game dev developer on the podcast, I'm pretty sure. So
Nice.
congrats to that. You get
So
that.
really what it is I guess I'll just start at the beginning, but I think I was talking with a different friend, and we were talking about, old games from the DS era that like they don't exist anymore. And there is this one game where you had, you know, robots marching around and grabbing coins and stuff and reaching a door. And that franchise dead now. They haven't released a game for like over 10 years. It's an old Mario franchise game, but I thought, we were talking. It's like I think there's a lot of ways to improve on the formula. It's like, you know what, I am going to go ahead and do it. And part of that decision is I'm not a very good artist, and so that's a barrier for like really ambitious projects for me. Is because I can't, keep up with the asset creation of a game by myself. I haven't found anyone to collaborate with, and that sometimes kind of discourages someone from trying to make a game. But I'm like, well, this is a simple enough idea that I could kind of make something um, that looks bad but passable for what I want to do. And so I would set arbitrary technical limitations on the art. Like the art can only have 16 colors, and it's like those old retro games, but it's really because I can't draw art. So I just started developing it on a whim, and I figured it was going to be one of those projects that lasts 2 weeks for me. And I've been off and on with the development, but I think it started kind of trying to it's sorry, you're gonna have to like edit out some of this. I lose my train of thought sometimes, but I don't know. I decided I would set a very small goal instead of a super over ambitious goal. Like, okay, it's going to be, 60 levels total. And it's going to be in four themes, 15 levels each, and it's going to have a funny little story on the side, and that's all it needs to be. Which it's very down to earth and you know uh, simple. And so I have these little uh, kind of slideshow cutscenes where I essentially freehand characters, and they look terrible, and then they just have some banter. And the plot of the game is essentially you have this company, Technobabble Industries, and they've invented robots, and they're about to launch their new line of little robots that can be your assistant or whatever. And they're having a party in the factory, but they all lock themselves inside the room and they can't get out. So they have to try to get the robots to come and let them out, and they have to navigate the factory to get there.
Gotcha.
And it's essentially you don't get to directly control the robots. You can activate them and they start walking in the straight line, but you have to, remotely activate other parts of the factory. Like, oh, we're going to flip this conveyor belt left or right. We're going to make these pistons go up so you can walk up the ramp, and then down so you can go down the other way. And the robots can't stop once they've started. So it's called micro march because they're the small robots, but also you're sort of micromanaging the factory around the robots so they can get to their goal on time. And I think you can draw a couple metaphors or whatever from that. So there's not a lot notable about the development process because it's not a very ambitious project. But it's like I'm like off of it for 2 months, I'm on it for 2 weeks, and so forth. And I think as I approach my mission more, like I'll be suddenly in like a creative rush and I'll get it all out, a week before I leave for my mission or something.
So is that the beautiful goal, Hiram, that you'll get version 1 or whatever of the game like out so like I could play it like the second you leave, basically?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot works and a lot that doesn't work. I finally solidified what I want the formula of the levels to be, and it's just I think I just have to make the puzzles and stuff now. So yeah, that's my goal is just to get it out, before I leave my mission in the next month or two.
So I'll tell you that for me, I had a couple videos that I had that I was like, I have to get these out when I had my gaming YouTube channel back in the day. And I'm super glad because basically what I did was I got them into a format that was like, okay, these are done. And my brother James can upload them and whatever else with them. But I'm doing my part. I'm doing everything that only I can do. And then I'm leaving the rest like with him, you know. And then when I went on my mission, James took care of the channel for a while and then left for his mission when I was 15 months into mine. But for me, it was really nice because, you know, there's some videos that was like sort of sitting on them. And it's like, it's just, I don't even know, like a good analogy, like you're sitting on rocks or something. It's like, we finally did something about it, you know, and finally got it done. But, oh, I don't know. It was really nice to just kind of take care of that. And then there's been other times where, like, when I went for FSY, for example, one of the times where I didn't really have a bunch of podcasting stuff done. And then there was one other time when I went to Alaska when I had a month's worth of podcasting stuff done. So it was like, I could just, you know, I mean, obviously, I don't think you'll have any struggle with, you know, staying focused and helping out everybody on your mission and being yourself and stuff. But I think doing that in a way is kind of taking care of that and showing the Lord, like, hey, like, I'm going to use this time for this so that when I do get out, I'm going to use all of that time, like, for you, and trust that when I get back, you will have a whole new ocean of opportunities for me to dive into.
So I think so. That's a really good way of looking at it.
Yeah. So let's kind of dive into one of the things that uh, just gave you a lot of coding experience. We don't have to talk too much about it, but you got into Minecraft servers and you started coding stuff in Minecraft servers and putting stuff in Minecraft. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I had known Java a little bit since I was 13, but I hadn't been using it much. So I was in high school one day and I had this friend of a friend be like, I'm trying to find a coder for this server I'm starting. Do you know how to make plugins? And I didn't, but I said yes anyway. So they sent me a project and I had to sit down and within the span of like maybe 6 hours, everything just clicked for me. I was like, okay. I ended up producing a product for him within the 6 hours, despite kind of just going by the seat of my pants. And then from there, I was able to go post on, gig forums and stuff like, oh, I'm a big shot coder now. You can hire me. Give me $10 and I'll give you a plugin or something. Well, a couple weeks of that, and I get a more permanent offer from somebody for like actual, not a pretty good sum of money. And this was, I mean, I had worked fast food and stuff before, but I was really excited, like, oh, I can make money doing what I love. But here's the thing: is I was only 17, and he was sending me, non-disclosure agreements and stuff. Now, if I was a little older, I would have known that a contract is supposed to tell you what you're supposed to be getting paid, more or less. But the contract was just, here's what you can't do. You can't work for anybody else while you're working for me. You can't talk about my big shot server that's I'm going to start up to rob kids of their parents' credit card money, which is essentially what the business model is oh, pay $15 for god powers or on the server or whatever, and I would kind of be in charge of implementing the features behind that with through Java coding.
Yeah.
So I find out he doesn't actually have a server yet. So I'm like, okay, here's I designed a concept for him, And he's like, sure, that sounds great. We're going to make this one concept. We work on it for about a month. And then he tells me out of the blue, actually, I've bought out somebody else. So we're going to ditch all this work that we just did. And you're going to come and fix this server. Oh, by the way, you have 2 weeks before it launches on New Year's Day. Have
Okay,
fun.
so we'll stop right there for now. So you're 17, you've done some coding, you've learned some stuff, and this guy's like, hey, I want you in my server. Then you find out he doesn't actually have a server, and so you come up with this banger idea of a server, and he's like, yeah, that sounds cool. Then you work on it for a month, and then he's like, actually, we're going to do this other idea. And not to mention, he had you sign a non-disclosure agreement. Did he like send you just the random PDF? Like, oh, by the way, you need
No,
to,
he actually hired a lawyer in Canada. Yeah, he wasn't, and this is like he's talking about making maybe $1,000 per year, but
well,
he's spending like he's a big company. He bought DDoS protection for like $500 a month when there's like 3 people playing on the server at any given time.
oh boy.
He would also log on to like the Discord voice channels with where all the players, which are the customers of the business, they're all on there. He would log on drunk and threaten to ban people for disagreeing with him. And these are the people who've paid like $200 or whatever.
Okay, so there's clearly some red flags, and yet we persist. And what happens? What happens from what do you learn, and how does it come together? How does it all fall apart? I didn't mean to spoil it, but
Well, I definitely learned how not to run a business because, like, I was younger than him by maybe 10 years, and even I knew he wasn't doing a great job. So instead of making me make the game fun, he decided he would have me develop uh, features that would make him a lot of money, but wasn't actually fun to play. And so it launched. It went great, a couple bugs. Within 2 weeks, the server was dead. Nobody wanted to play. And he was in denial. He's like, let's start another server instead of fixing the one that's already here. And that point, he had kind of already been not giving me paychecks. He was treating me like I was an investor, like a partner in the business when I was actually an employee. So eventually, I think a couple months in, I just ended up ghosting him. I like put my status to offline for like 2 months straight before he got the picture that I wasn't talking to him. That's I don't know. He was a dreamer. I feel like was the big thing is he had delusions of grandeur, and he was spending like he was this really profitable business instead of starting small and scaling up once you have success. So I think
yeah,
that's the lesson to be learned from there.
amen. So like one of the first things that there's this one post I saw on LinkedIn that talked about nailing it and then scaling it. So that term is burned into my brain. So like you figure out how the business works, you figure out how to make this work, and you got it nailed up. It can hang on its own, it can stay there and whatever. And then you scale it, you make other ones, you make it work. I'll give you a quick example. So one of my uncle right now, chemical engineer, right now he works for a company and they're trying to make these different things, right? And it costs them a pretty good amount of money to build them, and they're not able to make very many at a time. And I'm not going to disclose all the figures, but it's a lot of money that they're going to be able to sell these things for. And all they have to do is figure out how to make, the first 100 or so work. And they've proved it 100 times that it works. And then they can mass produce it more and make BOOKAH bucks, So I think with a lot of this, I'm not saying you're going to become a BOOKAH buck millionaire, BOOKAH whatever, but I am saying that you will develop confidence in the process if you learn to trust the process. So,
Thank you.
yeah. And you're a great example of that, Hiram. I'd come back from school and you just be like, you just be doing it, dude. You'd be coding, and you'd be having a good time, or you'd be chilling on Rimworld and saving lives or losing lives and dying. And it was a great time. So I guess really quick, because I think this will be a big asset for you on your mission. You're a great storyteller. So I think Rimworld has been beneficial for you in learning a little bit about that. Would you be able to dive a little bit more into that?
Oh, it's a silly little game that released a few years ago, and it's essentially it's a colony management. You have to build buildings, and people are gonna like live their lives and farm. It's almost like The Sims, except every couple days, pirates come and try to kill everyone. You have to fend them off. It's I don't know. I think at that time I was really into it because I liked how a story would sort of it's not built to have a solid plot, but with the events that sort of happen in a semi-random way, a story can kind of emerge, and it's kind of the story of the entire colony, which usually almost always ends in disaster. But I feel like at the time, uh I was into that because I was uh, that was my freshman year of college, and I was still getting the hang of my own life. And I feel like I was really in flux at the time. I hadn't settled in one place, and to a point, I still haven't. So I think it might have been a guy can just kind of escape into a world of my own creation for a little bit. But it's I might have played it a little too much. It's good to do that, in moderation. And so I think turning time to more productive ways to kind of create and develop your own world is, would be actual programming or game development. Playing other people's games is great, especially when you're doing it with a friend, but sometimes, you just kind of puts you in a stasis.
Time can fly away, and creating in someone else's game is cool. Like maybe get a Mario Maker level or something like that is great. But at least from my experience, I'm sure from your experience too, it's usually more fulfilling to create in your own world and create your own stuff. But it's cool to have it's great to have both. Cool. So Hiram, I wanted to also talk about how you were able to step away from the Pokemon hacking community. I'm not sure much you're able to how much you're sticking to that or whatever, but I
Yeah.
remember when you were talking about like how you're putting all this work into these hacks for people making like gunslinging battles in Pokemon, by hacking, like coding it into like the
Right.
engine, like for the Game Boy and whatever. And I was just like mind blown. Like, how is he doing this? Like, you had me try a couple of them, and they had custom cutscenes and graphics. I mean, other people did the graphics and stuff, but
Right.
you like coded it and made it all work, made the whole machine work. I was so mind blown by it. But ultimately, you're like, you know what? I want to work more in Micro March. I want to pursue other things, and seeing that for me made it a lot easier for me to step away from my gaming channel and stuff. Like even at the time I still hadn't quite let go of it. Now I've let go of it completely by now, but it's still kind of hard. So break that down for us a little bit.
Well, I want to start with sometimes, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks or so, I get that twinge. Like I want to go back to previous projects that, it's like I want to go back. And that was a lot of fun when I did that. But here's the thing is projects like that, they, at the end of the day, they're not as productive as a lot of other things, I could be doing. It's good, better, best. And if I'm, creating with a franchise where the parent company is very lawsuit happy, let's just put it that way. I had gone in and solved a lot of technical challenges with the Pokemon games. Like, oh, I've doubled the number of boxes you can store the Pokemon in by pushing the engines to its maximum limitations, stuff like that. But I think after a while, I'm like, I need to focus, on getting my degree. I need to focus on projects that at the end of the day I could take and release and say, hey, this is 100% mine. And it's almost kind of like a self-esteem thing to release something that's 100% your own versus, but I'm glad I did it because that was, why I learned C. And C is a really important language to learn as a programmer, and that's how I learned, source control with GitHub, and so it taught me a lot of stuff. It's what brought me from like an amateur, like kiddie programmer, And like the 2 or 3 years I was working with that like hacking engine, it kind of brought me up to someone who could work on, professional projects as an adult. So again, I learned a lot of stuff. I think what I said is from the very beginning of the meeting could probably edit in to this point. Where we're talking about it was it's about the things you learn, not necessarily finishing the project. So I kind of did that out of order, but um, sorry. So I just think I had to. Sometimes you have to move on, and I feel like once you move on and decide something is, not productive, even though it's fun, sometimes you have to really stay steady. Like for you, like you probably feel like sometimes you want to go back and see what you can do with your, your gaming streams and stuff, but there's only 24 hours in the day, and there are the things you have to do to survive. There are the other commitments you make to other people, and then maybe there's that sliver of 3 hours a day that where you can decide what you want to do for yourself, and for some people it's more or less. And, if you look at it that way, you have to make the best choices.
Yeah, I've really been seeing a lot more. I mean, it says in John 7:17, like if you'll do the will, you'll know that it's the doctrine, whether it be of God or whether I speak of myself. And so, that's what I've really been seeing with a lot of things. Like God's like, hey, like if you want to know if this is true or not, then try it. So that's what I've been trying to do a lot more now. So I've been getting super deep in podcast stuff, learning about podcast production and all this other stuff so I can, really beef this up and make it a lot better and scale it up, and trying to, let go of other stuff and really build that up, and just trusting God more on that. So Hiram, when you listen to this in 2 years, like I don't mean to put you on the spot too much, but like what do you want, uh what do you hope you'll get out of your mission?
Well, first of all, hi, future Hiram. Why ain't you married yet?
That's probably gonna happen. It's okay.
um, I I feel like what I want to get out of, my mission, I feel like I going for the year and a half or so of college before the mission, it's taught me how to be an adult, the basics of living, laundry, your own food. I feel like I don't know who Jesus Christ really is to me yet. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of the mission is to, because like, I can bear my testimony, and sometimes I have a hard time, you know, figuring out what I want to say, when I'm put on the spot for testimonies. So I feel like I want to be able to answer the question, who is Christ to you? Uh without any hesitation, and I'll just know, on a very personal level. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of it.
I absolutely love that. I think you'll get that in spades, and I will definitely support you and send some letters and stuff to you. But we do got to wrap this up because we're on the low Zoom meeting thing. But next time it will be different. So I love you, brother. Take care. You're
Thank
gonna
you.
do awesome. We love future Hiram as well. If you're feeling anxious or whatever, we love you too. So
Thank
thanks for
you.
listening. We'll have all your links to your stuff in the show notes.
Thank you.